In the grand ballroom of the luxury hotel, decorated with clusters of gold and cream balloons, 50 guests suddenly stopped breathing. "Your brother died because of you, and I will never forgive you." The sentence, screamed with a voice that seemed to scrape the bottom of a soul, bounced off the silk-covered walls, instantly destroying the elegance of the evening. Sarah Bennett, the woman known across the city as the perfect daughter, the tireless caretaker, stood petrified in the center of the room. Her father, the respected Mr. Thomas Bennett, had just pronounced her social death sentence in front of the local elite. No one could believe what they were witnessing. Near the dessert table, where trays of artisanal pastries sat untouched, a sister-in-law whispered to her neighbor, eyes wide. "I cannot believe he had the courage to cause a scene like this on her 50th birthday. Today, of all days." On the other side of the room, Jessica, Sarah's best friend since college, gripped her designer clutch so hard her knuckles turned white, her mouth dry. "I knew there was something deeply wrong between them, but I never imagined he would explode like this in public." And in a corner, an elderly lady with silver hair shook her head gravely. "You know why she still takes care of him after all this, right? It's guilt, pure guilt that eats her alive, eats her." A husky voice explained to the group gathered near the untouched three-tier cake. The real story is that her twin brother, Ryan, died 25 years ago in a terrible car accident on the old highway. Thomas has always blamed her, always. But what no one here knows is that she was also in that car that night, and she survived without a scratch. The silence that followed was heavy, suffocating, full of unspoken judgments. For Sarah, standing motionless in the center of the ballroom where she was supposed to be celebrating half a century of life, the voices were just a distant hum. She knows that every glance, every whisper, every expression of shock is about her, about that night, about Ryan. The navy blue gown she had chosen with such care seemed to weigh tons now. Tears burned behind her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. She never does. Her father stumbled away, back hunched, hands trembling. The cake remained untouched. The gold balloons seemed to mock her. 50 years, 25 of them lived in penance. The guests remembered. A year ago, Sarah organized Thomas's 77th birthday with the dedication of a devoted daughter, every detail perfect. 6 months ago, when Thomas had a mild mini-stroke, she brought him to live in her penthouse without hesitation, transforming the guest suite into an adapted room. And today, at this party that was supposed to celebrate her life, the bomb had exploded. The wound everyone pretended not to see had been ripped open for the world to stare at. But what these whispering people didn't know, what no one but Sarah knew, were the three truths that had brought her to this moment. The truth about why she was in the car with Ryan that fateful night. The truth about the last words her twin brother whispered before closing his eyes forever. And the truth about why she never, in 25 years, defended herself against her father's deadly accusation. The real story began long before this elegant salon, long before this public humiliation. Subscribe now. This story will show you that the truth behind family judgments is always deeper than it seems. Hit the bell icon and discover what really happened that night. Subscribe and don't miss the ending. It will change everything you think you know about forgiveness. 3 months before that disastrous party, the kitchen of Sarah's apartment smelled of fresh coffee and toasted bagels. It was 6:30 in the morning. Mr. Thomas Bennett was seated at the table, the newspaper open to the sports section, reading glasses slipping down his nose. Sarah placed the china cup in front of him, the same cup he had used for 30 years, the one that had belonged to his late wife, Mrs. Anne. 3 sugars, without asking. Warm milk, never boiled. She knew every preference, every habit, every silence. Thomas took the cup without looking at her, emitting a low grunt that could be a thank you or just the sound of mourning. Sarah smiled anyway. that small, tired smile of someone who has learned to be content with crumbs. She sat on the other side of the table with her own mug, black coffee, already cold because she always served her father first. The radio played an old jazz tune softly. For 3 minutes, maybe 4, there was something resembling peace. He commented on the baseball scores. She replied a careful opinion, nothing that could irritate him. He almost smiled. Almost. It was these moments Sarah clung to, small crumbs of normality in a relationship built on ruins. This was their dance. He allowed himself to be cared for. She cared for him with silent devotion. There were never verbal thank yous, but he accepted the coffee, the food, the medicines organized in colorful pillboxes. She anticipated needs before he verbalized them. When he frowned, Sarah knew his back pain had returned and was already reaching for the Tylenol. When he sighed, looking out the window, she knew he was thinking about Ryan and disappeared discreetly so as not to witness the pain he never shared with her. It had been like this for 6 months since Thomas came to live there. Before that, it was daily phone calls, visits 3 times a week, always Sarah going to him, never the other way around. Now they shared the same roof, but remained on separate planets, orbiting around the ghost of Ryan. Sarah revealed herself in small gestures, in the way she touched her father's shoulder when passing, lightly, testing if he would recoil. In the tone of voice eternally low and careful, as if speaking to someone on the verge of shattering. In the automatic sacrifice of serving the best portions onto his plate, keeping the leftovers for herself. She read Thomas's mood in the way he held the newspaper. Relaxed meant a tolerable day. Crumpled between his fingers meant the internal storm was coming and she should walk on eggshells. Sarah never mentioned Ryan directly, but left his photo in the living room, fresh flowers beside it every Sunday, a silent altar to the son he lost and the guilt he placed on her. It was her way of saying, I remember, I feel, I pay. Sarah's day began at 5:30 in the morning. She woke up thinking about her father. Did he sleep well? Did he drink water during the night? Do the sheets need changing? She prepared the special breakfast, checked his blood pressure, organized the 4 pills he took with his meal. Then she dressed in a rush for her administrative job at a downtown firm where she had worked for 23 years. She called at lunch to make sure he had eaten the meal she left ready. She ran back at 5:30 in the afternoon, stopped at the market if something he liked was missing, entered the house, taking off her shoes so as not to make noise. They dined together at 7, the television on to fill the silence. At 9, she checked if he had taken the night medicines. She only went to sleep after hearing his heavy breathing from the other room. Her entire life fit into the spaces between caring for Thomas. People knew her like this. Sarah, the daughter who cares for her widowed father. Sarah, the sister who stayed. Her identity was intertwined with the role she played. At work, colleagues asked first about Thomas, only then about her. At church, she was introduced as the woman who sacrificed her own life to care for her father. She had no life outside of that. 3 men had tried to date her over the years. 3 times she refused with excuses about not having time, about her father needing her. The truth was harder. She didn't think she deserved to be loved. Her greatest quality was extreme loyalty, sacrificial care that bordered on masochism. Her greatest defect was not knowing how to exist without paying an unpayable debt. The story had actually begun 27 years ago, not 25, when Sarah was 23 and lost her mother, Mrs. Ann, to a fulminant cancer. It was 6 months between diagnosis and death, 6 months where Sarah dropped out of grad school to nurse her while Ryan continued his life, traveling for work, building a career. No one blamed him. He was a man. He had to work. But Sarah was the daughter. The daughter's place was beside the sick mother. When Anne died, it was in Sarah's arms, not Ryan's. And 2 years later, when Ryan died in that accident, Sarah's mother was no longer there to soften the guilt Thomas poured onto the surviving daughter. Sarah swore then, before the grave of both, that she would care for her father until the end, that she would compensate in some way for the son he lost. She built emotional walls with the rest of the world, but left herself completely exposed to her father, hoping that one day, someday, he would absolve her. Sarah's dream wasn't individual. It never had been. She didn't dream of traveling or marrying or having children. She dreamed only of one sentence. "It wasn't your fault, daughter. I forgive you." She dreamed of the day her father would look at her with tenderness instead of poorly disguised remorse. In her nightstand drawer, she kept an old photo, worn from being touched so much. The four of them, Thomas young and smiling, Anne beautiful in a sundress, and the twins at 7 years old, Ryan with his arm around Sarah's shoulder, cheeks pressed together. Complete family. Happy family. It was this photo Sarah looked at every night before sleeping, whispering like a prayer, "One day we will be okay again." Her happiness was entirely deposited in managing somehow to make her father love her again. The apartment they lived in was Sarah's, bought with the sweat of 15 years of work, but it had been remodeled to be Thomas's home. His room, planned to be an office, now had a hospital bed, a brown leather recliner he loved, a large screen TV, powerful air conditioning because he always felt hot. The balcony facing east was his territory every afternoon. The kitchen had the spices he preferred. The fridge stocked the non-alcoholic beer the doctor allowed. The pantry stocked the shortbread cookies he ate obsessively. In the living room, strategically lit by a soft lamp, the photograph of Ryan at 25, broad smile, eyes full of life. Sarah had placed it there as an offering, fresh flowers always beside it, usually white lilies. The smell of the house was a mix of medicine, old coffee, and disinfectant. The constant sound was the news channel on Thomas's TV, and the slow shuffle of his slippers down the hall. Every object there carried the memory of an attempt by Sarah to make her father feel at home, to compensate for the son he lost, to be enough when she knew she never would be. For Sarah, there was a clear hierarchy in the universe. At the absolute top, her father's needs. Then, much later, the opinions of Jessica, who was the only friend who had resisted 25 years of being constantly cancelled on. Then, work obligations. And in last place, very distant herself. Thomas's opinion on anything was worth more than 1,000 voices of strangers. If he didn't like a dress, she donated it. If he complained about a noise, she silenced it. Other relationships, romantic or not, orbited around, but were never allowed to enter. Sarah had built a life that revolved around a single son, and that son was a man who burned more than he warmed. There were unwritten rules. Never mention Ryan by name, always your brother if absolutely necessary. Always be available when father called, no matter the time. Accept the prolonged silences as deserved punishment. Never question, never demand explanation. Never cry in front of him, never show weakness, never complain. Protect Thomas from any outside worry, lie if necessary, hide her own problems. These rules governed every interaction, every word, every movement. But 2 weeks before the party, something cracked. Sarah was preparing lunch, distracted with a pot of soup, when she mentioned without thinking, "March 15th is coming up." The date. The damn date that marked both her birthday and Ryan's death. Thomas was passing through the kitchen, stopped as if he had been shot, turned slowly, eyes narrowed. "What did you say?" The voice was ice. Sarah realized the mistake immediately, hands trembling. "Nothing, Dad. Sorry, I didn't." But he had already turned his back, walked to his room, slammed the door. Silence. For 3 whole days, Thomas didn't speak a word to Sarah. He ate what she served, but looked through her as if she were glass. Sarah repeated to herself, "It was just my carelessness, my failure. Tomorrow it will go back to normal." And eventually it did, a tense and fragile version of normal. But the fissure had appeared. A few days later, new tension. Thomas's doctor, Dr. Peterson, recommended more intensive physical therapy, 3 times a week at the clinic, daily exercises at home, real effort to recover mobility. Thomas refused categorically. "I don't need that. I'm fine." But he wasn't. Sarah saw the increasing difficulty getting up from the chair. She tried to convince him gently, then insisted a little more, and he exploded. "You don't boss me around." He slammed his glass on the table, water spilling. Sarah recoiled, apologizing. She called the doctor later, hiding in the bathroom, and lied. "He is cooperating, doctor, doing the exercises properly." The first lie to protect him from medical embarrassment. She didn't know yet that small lies create big consequences. But there was a moment, a single golden moment the week before the party. Sarah was on the balcony hanging a throw blanket. Thomas sitting in his rocking chair, afternoon sun illuminating his face. A bird landed on the railing, a fat and noisy blue jay. Thomas commented, "Look at that bold thing." Sarah laughed, a real and light laugh. "He comes here every day. I think he wants to move in with us." Thomas let out a sound that approached a chuckle. For maybe 90 seconds, they talked about the bird, about the heat, about nothing important. And in those 90 seconds, Sarah felt something she hadn't felt in years: lightness. If she knew that would be the last time she would hear something resembling her father's laughter, she would have recorded every detail, every second in her memory. When he got up to go inside, he passed by her and, without looking, touched her hand. 2 seconds of contact. Maybe an accident, maybe not. Sarah guarded that touch like someone guarding a rare jewel. It was precisely this fragile connection, this identity completely intertwined with the impossible search for forgiveness, that would make what was about to happen not just painful, but devastating. Because when you build your entire existence on the hope of being forgiven, what happens when that forgiveness is denied publicly? 5 days before the party that would destroy everything, Sarah arrived home carrying grocery bags and found a cream-colored envelope on the kitchen table. She frowned. She wasn't expecting anything. She opened it and saw birthday invitation. Her birthday. 50 years, Jessica had organized a surprise party. The invitation was beautiful, textured paper, gold lettering, elegant details. Sarah felt her heart clench, half gratitude, half panic. She read the date. March 15th. Of course, her birthday. But also... She froze. March 15th was the date of Ryan's death. How had she not realized? How had Jessica not realized? She heard steps behind her. Thomas entered the kitchen, getting a glass for water, looked distractedly at the invitation in her hand. "What is that?" His voice was neutral, but Sarah knew the tones. "It's... Jessica organized a little get-together for my birthday, Dad." "I didn't know." He took the invitation from her hand, slowly, read it. His eyes fixed on the date, his jaw locked, the color drained from his face. March 15th. It wasn't a question, it was an accusation. Sarah felt the world collapse. "Dad, I didn't choose the date, it was Jessica. I can cancel. No need for any party." Her voice came out high, desperate. Thomas threw the invitation on the table as if it burned. "You are going to celebrate on the day your brother died?" He turned his back and walked out. The bedroom door slammed hard enough to make the picture on the wall shake. Sarah stood frozen, the cream invitation mocking her on the table. Hands shaking, she grabbed her phone, dialed Jessica. 3 rings. "Sarah, did you see the invite? I managed to sneak into your place when you were at the market yesterday. Left it as a surprise. It's all organized, sweetie. 50 guests, the hotel ballroom, 3-tier cake, beautiful decor." "Jessica," Sarah interrupted, voice broken. "I need to cancel." Silence on the other end. "What? Why?" "The date, Jess. It's March 15th. It's the day Ryan died. My dad, he won't accept it. I can't do this to him." Jessica sighed deeply, that sigh loaded with years of frustration. "Sarah, love, it is your birthday. You have the right to celebrate. Not on that date. I can't disrespect my brother's memory. You have to cancel." The urgency in Sarah's tone was palpable. Jessica argued, "But I already sent 50 invites. I already booked the hall. I ordered the cake. I would have needed at least a month's notice. Then cancel it. Say I'm sick. Say my dad is sick. Invent anything. Please, Jessica." The lie came out naturally, a solution that seemed perfect in the moment. Jessica resisted, but eventually conceded. "All right, I'll see what I can do." When she hung up, Sarah felt temporary relief. Solved. Back to normal. She would have a simple dinner with her father on the day. No celebration, no disrespect to Ryan's memory. She had fixed the problem, or so she thought. 2 days later, Sarah's phone rang during work. Aunt Linda. The woman's voice was loaded with concern. "Sarah, honey, I just spoke to Jessica. She told me your father is very sick. Why didn't you tell me? I'm buying a plane ticket right now to come there. I can't let my brother go like this without saying goodbye. I mean, without visiting him." Sarah's blood ran cold. "Auntie, wait. It's not quite like that." But Linda was already in emergency mode. No, I'm coming. Arriving tomorrow afternoon. I need to see Thomas." She hung up before Sarah could explain. Sarah called Jessica immediately, hands sweating. "Jessica, what did you do?" "What did I do? You asked me to cancel. You told me to invent that someone was sick. I called the guests saying your father had a relapse and you need to care for him. But my father is fine. Now my aunt is coming because she thinks he's dying." Sarah was almost shouting, co-workers looking. Jessica sighed, annoyed. "So you ask me to lie and get mad when I lie? Sarah, you need to decide what you want." "Wait, this happened because I lied. Because I tried to avoid confrontation with my father. The thought hit hard. But I had no choice, did I? I couldn't have a party on the anniversary of Ryan's death. Dad would never forgive me, even so. Now this lie had a life of its own." Sarah tried to rationalize. "I can fix this too. I'll call Aunt Linda, explain it was a small misunderstanding, that Dad is fine. It was just a precaution." She called her aunt that night. "Auntie, look, I think there was an exaggeration. Dad isn't that bad. It was just tiredness. He's already improving." But Linda wasn't convinced. "Sarah, I know you. I know my brother. If you cancelled your own 50th birthday party, it's because the situation is grave. I already have the ticket, arriving tomorrow at 3. Panic rising. Sarah moved fast, thinking less, acting in desperation. "Auntie, you don't need to spend on the ticket. Look, it was really just a scare. The doctor said everything is under control," digging the hole deeper with every word. "Even so, I'm coming. I need to see with my own eyes." She hung up. Sarah sat on the living room floor, head in hands. What have I done? She created a lie to hide a problem, and now the lie was creating a bigger problem. She heard her father's door open. Thomas appeared in the hallway. "Who were you talking to?" Tension in his voice. "No one, Dad. Just a friend from work." More lies. He looked at her with that expression Sarah knew well. Mistrust. He went back to his room without further questions. But the seed was planted. The next day, Sarah left work early to intercept Aunt Linda before she arrived at the apartment. But when she opened the door at 2:30, Linda was already there, sitting in the living room with Thomas, both drinking coffee. The father looked fine, healthy, chatting normally. Linda stood up when she saw Sarah, expression confused. "Sarah, dear, your father looks great. Jessica said he had a serious relapse." Thomas frowned. "Relapse? What relapse?" He looked at Sarah. "What is she talking about?" The floor opening up. It was a misunderstanding, Dad. Jessica understood wrong. But Linda was putting the pieces together. Wait, you cancelled the party saying he was sick, but he isn't? Sarah couldn't form words, the truth coming out by force. I didn't want to have a party on March 15th because of Ryan, so you lied. Thomas stood up, voice rising. You said I was sick. You made your aunt come all the way here believing I was dying. It wasn't like that, Dad. But Thomas wasn't listening. He was red, veins popping in his neck. Linda tried to calm him. Thomas, sit down. It's not good for your blood pressure. But the damage was done. And then, as if the universe conspired for the perfect disaster, Sarah's cell phone rang. Jessica. Sarah, I need to warn you, I couldn't cancel the party. The hotel said we'd lose the deposit and the cake is already ordered. The guests, some said they are coming anyway because they already planned for it. The party is happening, whether you want it or not. They will be there tomorrow, March 15th at 7 p.m. Sorry. She hung up. Sarah stood frozen, phone in hand. Thomas had heard. The party wasn't cancelled? His voice was dangerously low. After all this, after lying, after deceiving your aunt, the party is happening anyway? On the day of your brother's death? Dad, I didn't know. I tried to cancel. But he was already walking to his room. You have always been selfish, always thought only of yourself. The door slammed. Linda looked at Sarah with a mix of pity and disappointment. I'm going to the hotel. She left without saying goodbye. Sarah spent the night awake. The situation had spun completely out of control, lie upon lie, consequence upon consequence. Problem 1 led to problem 2, which led to problem 3, converging now in a perfect storm. Her father hated her more than ever. Her aunt was disappointed, and the damn party was going to happen ready or not. On the morning of March 15th, Sarah woke up with nausea. She tried one last time, knocked on her father's door. Dad, please, I won't go to the party. I'll stay here with you. We can have dinner together, quiet, just us two. Silence. Then his voice came through the door. Do what you want. You always do. It wasn't permission. It was resignation. Worse than anger. At 6 p.m., Jessica appeared at the door with a dress and makeup bag. You are going. I didn't do all this for you not to show up. Practically dragged Sarah to the bathroom, dressed her, did her makeup as if preparing a body for a wake. Sarah looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman there. Blue dress, hair done, perfect makeup. But the eyes were dead. At 7:15, they arrived at the ballroom. It was beautiful. Gold and cream balloons, dessert table, 3-tier cake, friends and acquaintances everywhere. Everyone shouted, "Surprise!" when she entered. But Sarah barely heard. She was searching, and then she saw him, Thomas, in the corner of the room. Jessica had invited him. Attempt at reconciliation, but the expression on his face wasn't reconciliation. It was absolute betrayal. Sarah moved on autopilot, thanked greetings, forced smiles, feigned normality, but she felt her father's gaze burning her back. 30 minutes of torture. Then someone raised a glass, asking for attention for a toast. The room went silent. And Thomas, from the corner where he was, stumbled forward. People made way. He stopped in the center, looking at Sarah with pure hatred that cut deeper than any knife. You all want to celebrate today? Voice trembling but loud. Do you know what date represents today? 25 years ago today, my son died. Ryan died, and she... He pointed a trembling finger at Sarah. She was there, in the car, and she survived. The room held its breath. And today, she wants a party, wants a celebration, voice breaking. Your brother died because of you, and I will never forgive you. The scream echoed. 50 pairs of eyes on Sarah. Thomas stumbled away. The party died. The cake remained untouched. Sarah stood paralyzed in the center of the room, world crumbling, domino effect complete. A small lie had led to this. An attempt to protect had caused total destruction. All this time, while Sarah was trying to save the relationship with her father, protect him, honor Ryan's memory, the truth was that every decision sank her deeper. And now, in front of everyone she knew, the 25-year-old wound had been ripped open. Central relationship shattered, trust broken. Sarah realized too late that the attempt to protect had caused more damage than the truth ever would have. I did everything wrong. Every choice, every lie, every sacrifice had led to this moment. Public humiliation, definitive rejection, and the worst. She didn't know if she would ever manage to recover from this. But what Sarah didn't know was that behind everything that had happened, hidden in the shadows of that accident 25 years ago, there was a much deeper truth. And in the following days, while she would try to pick up the pieces of a destroyed life, that truth would begin to emerge, and it would change everything she thought she knew about guilt, about Ryan, about herself. Tell me in the comments which city you are watching from. I read all of them and reply with love, and leave that like if this story is touching your heart. 2 days after the public humiliation, Sarah wouldn't get out of bed. Jessica knocked on the door 12 times before using the spare key she had. She found her friend wrapped in sheets, curtains drawn, room dark in the middle of the afternoon. "Sarah," firm voice, "get up." "Leave me alone, Jess." "I won't." Jessica opened the curtains violently, light flooding in. Sarah moaned, covering her eyes. Jessica sat on the edge of the bed, took her friend's hand. "I know what you are feeling." "You don't know." "Yes, I do." Jessica's voice became lower, heavier. "Because I went through it too." Sarah finally looked at her. Jessica never talked about her own past. "My older brother Mark killed himself 10 years ago." The words fell like stones. "He had depression, tried treatment, tried meds, tried everything. And on a random Tuesday, he hung himself in his room. My mum found him." Sarah squeezed Jessica's hand tighter. "I didn't know that. I don't tell anyone. But you need to hear it." Jessica took a deep breath, gathering courage. "After he died, I became a slave to my family. Had to compensate for the loss, understand? I married Robert because my parents liked him, not because I loved him. Had a kid because they wanted a grandson. Quit my dream job to care for my mum. Past 15 years living to make my parents happy again, as if I could resurrect Mark by being perfect." Tears streamed down Jessica's face now. "And you know what I discovered? That nothing I did would bring my brother back, and that my parents would never be happy like that again, and that I was killing myself for nothing." "How did you get out of it?" Sarah whispered. "Therapy, lots of crying, and a decision. Either I let go of the guilt or I died along with Mark. I chose to live. I divorced Robert, went back to work, set boundaries with my parents. And you know what happened? They survived. I survived. And today, 10 years later, we have a real relationship, not based on compensation." Jessica looked into Sarah's eyes with intensity. "Sarah, you are doing exactly what I did. Living in penance, thinking that if you suffer enough, your father will forgive you. But he won't. Not because you don't deserve it, but because he chose not to forgive. And this isn't about you. It's about him not being able to let go of Ryan." The lesson was there, offered, but Sarah still couldn't take it. "I need to keep trying." "No, honey, you need to let go." But Sarah turned her face away. She wasn't ready. That night, alone again, Sarah went to the closet and took an old shoebox from the bottom drawer. Inside, kept for 25 years, a braided leather wristband. The wristband Ryan was wearing on his wrist the night of the accident. The only thing she had kept. The rest, Thomas had burned or donated, unable to bear the memories. But Sarah had hidden this. She held the wristband against her chest and memories flooded in. March 15th, 25 years ago. Sarah was 25, Ryan too, twins who had celebrated their birthday that same morning. Simple party at home, chocolate cake, 25 candles. Mom, Anne, was already sick, advanced cancer, but had insisted on celebrating. It was the last party they had complete. That night, Ryan called Sarah at 10. "Sis, come get me. Little party here at the bar turned into a drinking fest and I overdid it. I can't drive." Sarah was in pajamas, almost asleep. "Call a cab, Ryan. I have no cash. Please, you're my savior." She could have insisted on the cab, could have said no, but Ryan was her twin, her half, her best friend. She never denied him anything. She got dressed, took the keys, drove 15 minutes to the bar. When she arrived, Ryan was laughing with friends, beer in hand, clearly over the limit. "My guardian angel." He hugged Sarah, strong smell of alcohol. "Let's go." She went to his car. "Where are the keys?" He searched pockets, found them, but didn't give them to her. "I'll drive." "Ryan, you drank." "I'm fine, just a few beers." "Give me the keys." She extended her hand. He laughed. "You worry too much, sis. Relax." And he got into the driver's side. Sarah stood in the parking lot. She could have insisted more. Could have called a cab for both and left the car there. Could have called their father, but Ryan was already starting the engine, waving out the window. "You coming or staying?" She got in. First guilt. Didn't fight harder. Dark road, little traffic. Ryan driving too fast, laughing, telling a story about something that happened at the party. Sarah asking to slow down. "Ryan, slow down. It's all good." But it wasn't. Sharp curve appeared suddenly. Ryan tried to turn, but too late. Car went off the road. Noise of metal crushing, glass shattering, world spinning, and then silence. Sarah opened her eyes, airbag in face, taste of blood in mouth, pain in shoulder but alive, turned to the side. Ryan, trapped, steering wheel crushed against chest. Blood, lots of blood, eyes open, fixed on her. "Ryan," her voice coming out hoarse. "Sis," his voice so weak. "It wasn't your fault. Tell Dad." Trying to speak more but blood-filling mouth. "Ryan, no, wait, help is coming." Sarah trying to reach him, seatbelt locked. Siren sounds in the distance. "Tell Dad," Ryan repeating, eyes desperate, and then nothing. His eyes became empty, still. Sarah screamed until her throat tore, but Ryan was no longer there. Paramedics pulled her out of the car. Minor injuries. Miracle. On the other side, they cut metal to get Ryan out. Too late. Thomas arrived running, face desperate. Saw Sarah standing, medic bandaging her arm. Saw the stretcher with Ryan covered. Collapsed. And when he got up, looked at Sarah with something she had never seen before in her father's eyes. Hatred. "Why didn't you die instead of him?" whispered. But she heard it, and continued hearing it for 25 years. Now holding Ryan's wristband, Sarah finally let out what was stuck for so long. Started talking out loud, alone in the dark room, words gushing like emotional vomit. "I always ran from anything that could make me truly happy. Mark wanted to marry me, I said no. Andrew loved me, I said I wasn't ready. Philip insisted for 2 years, I said I had to care for my dad. But the truth? The truth is, I didn't think I deserved love. Because Ryan died and I lived. Loving someone new would be betraying him, would be admitting I moved on, would be forgetting. Words accelerating now. Just like when I got in that car without fighting more for the key, I entered my father's life without ever defending myself. I accepted his anger, accepted the guilt, accepted everything because deep down, I blame myself too." Voice breaking. And what if Ryan wasn't going to defend me in those last words? What if he was going to tell Dad it was my fault for not stopping him from driving? I'll never know. and that kills me every day. Sobbing now. The truth is, I am also angry at Ryan for drinking, for insisting on driving, for putting me in that situation, at my dad for punishing me for surviving, for choosing the dead son over the living daughter. But mostly at myself, for accepting, for living 25 years like a zombie, for never defending myself, for never screaming back, "It wasn't my fault." Body folding, falling to the floor, wristband still tight in hand. I never forgave myself for being alive. How can I ask for Dad's forgiveness if I never forgave myself? How? And there, at rock bottom, the door opened. Jessica had come back, entered without asking, saw Sarah on the floor, said nothing. Just sat beside her, pulled her friend into a tight hug, let her cry. Minutes passed. Eventually, Jessica whispered, "When my brother killed himself, I spent years thinking if I had noticed the signs, I could have saved him. Therapy taught me something. Carrying guilt resurrects no one. It only kills who was left behind." They stayed there, two women who lost brothers, holding each other in a silence that said everything. Meanwhile, on the other side of the city, Thomas Bennett was alone in the old house where he lived before going to Sarah's. He had gone back there after the explosion at the party, refusing to speak to his daughter. The house was dusty, cold, exactly as he left it 6 months ago. He sat in the armchair in the living room, looking at the photograph on the wall. Ryan at 25, college graduation, broad smile, future ahead. Thomas spoke to the photo, voice hoarse. It should have been her. The words coming out automatically, 25-year mantra, but this time something different happened. For the first time, he really looked at his own thought and felt nausea, because deep down, in the most hidden part of himself, Thomas knew the truth. At the hospital 25 years ago, when the doctor said the female twin survived, there was a single accursed second of relief. I didn't lose both. I still have Sarah. And immediately after, crushing guilt for feeling relief when his son was dead. How could he feel relief? How could he think of himself when Ryan... To deal with that unbearable guilt, Thomas had done the most cowardly thing possible. He transferred the guilt, put it on Sarah, made her the target of all anger, all pain, all remorse he felt about himself. Because if he blamed her, he didn't need to blame himself. If he blamed her for surviving, he didn't need to admit he had a secret preference. If he punished her, he didn't need to face his own failure, that Ryan was an adult, that he made the choice to drink and drive, that it wasn't anyone's fault but his own. And Thomas could never admit that the perfect son, the beloved son, had made a fatal mistake. It was easier to put that on Sarah. She accepted, always accepted, and over 25 years Thomas built a narrative where Sarah was the villain and Ryan was the victim. But now, alone in this empty house, seeing his son's photo, Thomas finally whispered the truth. It wasn't her fault. It never was. And tears, the first in years, flowed. But even recognizing this, Thomas knew he couldn't forgive Sarah, because forgiving Sarah would mean letting go of Ryan, and letting go of Ryan meant admitting he is gone, he won't come back, it's over. And that Thomas couldn't do. So he chose to continue keeping Sarah in emotional captivity, because as long as she was there, suffering, Ryan somehow still mattered. Pain explains, it doesn't justify. Thomas knew he was destroying his living daughter, but couldn't stop. 3 days after the party, Sarah finally got out of bed, took a shower, ate something, tried to resume life. But then the phone rang. Unknown number. Sarah Bennett. Yes. This is City Medical Center. Regarding your father, Thomas Bennett. Her heart stopped. What happened? He was admitted an hour ago. Stroke. You are his emergency contact. Can you come?" Sarah hung up, hands shaking, grabbed purse, keys, ran. In the car, thoughts hammering, he can't die like this. Not with this anger between us, not without what? Without forgiving you. The inner voice was cruel but honest. She arrived at the hospital emergency corridor, doctor explaining, ischemic stroke, right side of brain affected, loss of movement on left side, and the worst, possible permanent loss of speech. "He might never speak again," Sarah repeated, disbelieving. "It is possible. We will monitor for the next 48 hours. They took her to ICU. Thomas in bed, tubes, machines, half of face drooping. Unconscious, Sarah sat beside him, took his hand. Cold. And the realization hit like a train. He might never say he forgives me. I spent 25 years waiting for something that is now impossible. The last thing he told me was that my brother died because of me. And it might be that those are the last words forever." Sarah needed to choose. Beg him to wake up and forgive her, continue the dance of guilt, or accept that forgiveness might never come and find peace anyway. The choice was before her, impossible and necessary. But before she could process completely, the ICU door opened. Aunt Linda entered, face tired, sat on the other side of the bed. They stayed in silence for 5 minutes. Then Linda spoke, voice low. "Sarah, there is something you need to know about your father." Sarah looked at her. "Some years ago, Thomas told me something. He was drunk, a rare thing for him. He said he knew it wasn't your fault, that the doctor had explained at the hospital that Ryan died of instantaneous internal hemorrhage, that nothing could have saved him. But he chose to blame you anyway, knowing the truth." The words fell like bombs. "Why?" Sarah whispered. "Because it was easier to blame you than to admit Ryan chose to drive drunk, that the perfect son made a fatal mistake. He transferred the anger to you to protect his memory." Sarah felt the floor disappear. "He knew? All this time?" 25 years of guilt, based on a lie father maintained consciously. "Sorry, dear. I thought you should know before it's too late." Linda left, leaving Sarah alone with devastating truth and unconscious father. The truth frees, but it also burns. Sarah finally understood it wasn't about deserving forgiveness. It was about a father who couldn't forgive himself, and that she could never fix. Thousands of women live waiting for forgiveness that will never come from fathers, husbands, sons who chose to keep them in guilt. Leave your city and the emotion you are feeling. Let's strengthen each other. 48 hours after admission, Thomas opened his eyes. Sarah was beside the bed, exhausted without having really slept. When she saw movement, she stood up fast. Dad, can you hear me?" His eyes moved toward her, trying to focus. His mouth opened, trying to form words, but what came out was just a dragged sound, incomprehensible. He tried again, visible effort on his face, frustration growing, but nothing. No clear word. The doctor entered, ran tests, confirmed what Sarah already knew deep down. The stroke severely affected Broca's area, responsible for speech production. He understands everything, but cannot articulate words. It could be temporary. It could be permanent. We can't know yet. Sarah looked at her father. He was crying, silent tears running down his face, trying to speak, trying desperately to say something, but only sounds coming out. And she knew, with absolute and devastating certainty, she would never hear, "I forgive you," from his mouth. 25 years waiting for 3 words that were now impossible. The cruel irony didn't go unnoticed. He had spent years refusing to speak the words she needed to hear, and now the universe had taken away his ability to speak any word. Sarah felt her legs give way. Jessica, who had just entered with coffee, dropped everything and held her friend before she fell. The world was spinning, nausea rising, sound of father's heart monitor echoing distant. "Breathe, Sarah, breathe." Jessica's voice seemed to come from a long tunnel, but Sarah couldn't breathe. She was drowning in brutal realization. This is it. This is my life. A father who will never forgive me because he can't speak anymore. A brother who is dead. A mother who is gone. Me alone carrying guilt for the rest of existence. The first hours were fog. Sarah signed papers. Nurses put in front of her, answered questions on automatic, accepted water Jessica forced into her hand. Moving mechanically, body functioning while mind was completely absent. Aunt Linda appeared, said things. Sarah nodded but didn't register a word. The doctor explained next steps. Physical therapy, speech therapy. Sarah agreed to everything without processing. Time was distorted. Minutes seemed like hours. Hours disappeared in seconds. People around talking. But she was underwater, sounds muffled, irrelevant. On the second day, reality started to penetrate in flashes. Sarah was sitting beside her father, watching him sleep, sedated, when the thought hit, it won't go back. Referring to life as it was, to the relationship as it was, to the hope she carried. Second flash, hours later. This really happened. It's not a nightmare. It is real. My father will never speak to me again. Third flash at dawn. I will never hear his voice again, never again. Each realization was a new blow. Body reacting to each one, folding over itself, low moan escaping, hands trembling uncontrollably. Jessica tried to take Sarah home, but she refused. I can't leave him alone. Sarah, you need to rest. I said no. Scream that made nurses look. Jessica recoiled, hands up. Okay, stay. On the night of the third day, alone in the uncomfortable chair beside her father's bed, Sarah started talking. Not to him, who was sleeping, to herself. Fragmented monologue, thoughts not forming complete sentences. No. It can't end like this. He has to wake up, has to tell me, How? How did I let it get to this point? I should have what? Forced him to forgive me? Begged more? Humiliated myself more than I already did? Voice rising, hands pulling her own hair. If only I hadn't gotten in that car. If I had fought harder for the key. If I had called my dad to pick Ryan up. If I had... The list of ifs was infinite. 25 years of regrets. Yesterday he could still speak. Why didn't I go to him? Why did I accept the silence after that party? Why did I let his anger be the last thing between us? Sobs breaking the words. Now, never again, never again, never. Repeating the word like an inverted prayer. Forced acceptance of permanence. The night nurse found Sarah like this, offered a sedative. She refused. I need to feel this. If I don't feel it now, it will destroy me later. The nurse nodded, left her alone. Sarah locked herself in the hospital bathroom, cold water on face, looking at reflection in mirror. Didn't recognize the woman there. Puffy eyes, grey skin, tangled hair, 50 years looking like 70. Who are you? Asked the mirror. Who are you without the search for your father's forgiveness? Silence. Because Sarah didn't know. Her entire adult identity had been built around being forgiven. Take that away, what's left? Void. Paralyzing fear. Returned to chair, curled up, hugged own knees, didn't eat, didn't sleep. Just existed in pure pain without filter. On the fourth day, Jessica arrived with a suitcase. Brought clean clothes, decent food, and I won't take no for an answer. Practically dragged Sarah to the bathroom, forced her to shower while waiting outside. When Sarah came out, Jessica had organized food on the small table. Eat. I'm not hungry. Didn't ask. Eat. They stared at each other. Sarah conceded first, took a sandwich, chewed mechanically. Jessica sat beside her. Can I tell you what I learned about loss? Sarah didn't reply, but Jessica continued. I learned there is no right way to feel. I learned imperfect love is still love. I learned sometimes there is no closure, no answer, no justice. and we have to live with that anyway. Paused. And I learned you don't honor who is gone by being perfect. You honor by being real, by being human, by being honest about pain. Sarah finally looked at friend. I don't know how to live with this, Jess. How do I wake up tomorrow? How do I continue when everything I was, everything I wanted doesn't exist anymore? I don't know, but I know you can. Because you already survived an impossible thing 25 years ago, and you will survive this too. That night, Sarah did something she hadn't done in years, took paper and pen from purse and started writing. Letter to Ryan. Ryan, today makes 25 years and 3 days since you left, and today I discovered I will never have the answers I need. Dad will never forgive me because he can't speak anymore, and you left before finishing your last words. I don't know if you were going to defend me or blame me. I lived my whole adult life in uncertainty, and I am tired. Hand shaking but continuing. I need to tell you things. I am angry at you for drinking, for insisting on driving, for putting me in that impossible situation, for dying and leaving me alone carrying this. I know it's unfair to be angry at the dead, but I am, and I need to admit it, tears smearing ink. But I love you too, always will. You were my half, my twin, my best friend, and your death broke me in ways I can't even explain. I spent 25 years trying to pay a debt I maybe never had. Stopped living because I felt I didn't deserve to if you couldn't. Deep breath. But I can't anymore. Can't continue like this. Need to let you go, Ryan. Need to let Dad go. Need to let the guilt go. Because if I don't let go, I will die too. Maybe not physically, but will die just the same. Signed, folded paper, kept in pocket with Ryan's wristband. It wasn't complete forgiveness, wasn't miraculous cure, but it was a seed. First, small seed of acceptance. It won't be okay, but I can be different. On the 5th day, Sarah had a silent conversation with herself. Sitting in chair, father sleeping beside, she recognized the choice. I can let this destroy me completely. Can stay here for the rest of my life, waiting for forgiveness from a man who can no longer speak. Can bury myself along with Ryan and with my father's unspoken words. Or, long pause. Or I can choose to live. Don't know how. Don't know what it means to live without this search that defined me for 25 years. But I need to choose, because staying here in this limbo isn't existing. It's just waiting for death. The decision didn't come as a dramatic explosion. Came quiet, private, painful. Acceptance that life continues even when it seems impossible, even when there is no happy ending, even when there is no closure. Sarah defined what living with this would mean. I will care for my father while he needs. Not out of guilt, but because I choose. Because he is my father and I love him, despite everything. I will honor Ryan by living for real, not just existing in penance. I will start therapy. Jessica suggested years ago, always refused, but now I need to. We'll learn to live with guilt instead of letting guilt control me. Small steps. They weren't grandiose plans of revenge or conquest. They were simple and honest plans of survival. I will wake up tomorrow, will shower, will eat, will do what I can do. Not because it fixes something, but because it's what I can do for me. Got up from chair, walked to father's bed. He was awake, eyes open, looking at her. Sarah kissed his forehead, slow, deliberate. Whispered, I love you, Dad, and I will be okay. Even if you can't tell me you're proud, even if you can't forgive me, I will be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Single tear ran down Thomas's face. His hand, the one that still had movement, lifted, shaking. Touched Sarah's face for 2 seconds. Wasn't forgiveness, but it was something. Sarah held his hand, squeezed back, then let go. Took purse, turned to leave room. Every step toward door was act of courage, leaving safe place of known pain. Return to world meant living with uncertainty, with unanswered questions, with wounds that would never close completely but meant living. And in that moment, that was enough. When she was opening the door, a nurse entered hurriedly. "Miss Bennett, someone is looking for you at reception. A Dr. Peterson. Says he was the doctor who attended your brother 25 years ago. Says he has something important to tell about that night." Sarah froze, heart accelerating, world stopping. Dr. Peterson? The emergency doctor? After 25 years? Is he here now? Yes, in the waiting room. Sarah looked back at father, at nurse, at corridor. Something inside her knew, what this man has to say will change everything. "I'm going there." Sarah went down to waiting room with shaking legs. Dr. Peterson was sitting near window, man with grey hair, thin-framed glasses, tired appearance of someone carrying weight for a long time. When he saw Sarah approaching, stood up. "Ms. Sarah Bennett?" Voice grave, but gentle. "Yes. I am Peterson. I was the on-call doctor who attended you and your brother Ryan on the night of March 15th, 25 years ago." The brother's name said out loud by stranger made Sarah stumble slightly. "I know who you are. The nurse said you have something important to tell me?" He nodded. "Yes, but not here. Can we talk somewhere more private?" Sarah took him to small, empty consultation room, sat facing each other. The doctor took deep breath, gathering words he clearly rehearsed. "For 25 years, I carried information that medical protocol of the time didn't allow me to reveal. But I retired, and before dying, I need you to know the truth about that night." Sarah felt heart racing. "What truth?" Dr. Peterson took yellowed envelope from pocket. "I brought copy of Ryan's autopsy report. At the time, it was filed without family having complete access because there was police investigation about accident. Then, it was forgotten in the system." Opened envelope, showed old papers. "Sarah, Ryan didn't die because of the accident. He had an undiagnosed congenital cerebral aneurysm. Time bomb in head that could have ruptured at any moment, driving, sleeping, laughing, walking down street." Words entered slow, Sarah's brain processing every syllable. "What are you saying?" "I am saying the aneurysm ruptured first. That was why he lost control of car. Ryan was already dying before collision. The accident happened because he had sudden brain hemorrhage at the wheel. The crash didn't kill him. He was already neurologically dead when he hit tree." Sarah couldn't breathe. "So, it didn't matter if I had taken the keys, if he hadn't drunk. No, the aneurysm was going to rupture anyway. Could have been that day, could have been week later, but when it ruptures, it is instantaneous and fatal. Ryan had, at most, days of life. You didn't know. He didn't know. No one knew." Sarah's world crumbled and rebuilt in seconds. 25 years of guilt based on false premise. "I didn't kill my brother." Her voice coming out in broken whisper. "You never killed your brother. Ryan died of medical condition no one could predict or prevent, and I need to tell you more." Dr. Peterson held her hand with gentleness of grandfather. His last words, "It wasn't your fault, tell Dad. I was there when he said that. I heard, and he was right. It wasn't your fault. It never was." Sarah started shaking, whole body shaking. Why didn't you tell this before? Why did you let my family believe?" "Because complete report was only ready weeks later, when you had already buried Ryan and were in deep grief. And at the time, protocol was not to open reports to families unless officially requested. Your father never requested. Assume he didn't want to know details. And I was young doctor, followed protocol, but carried this information like stone for 25 years. When saw your name in hospital system today, caring for Thomas Bennett, knew it was time." Sarah didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Did both. Strange sound coming out, mix of sob and hysterical laughter. 25 years. 25 years, I thought that. Couldn't finish. Dr. Peterson stayed quiet, letting her process. Minutes passed. Eventually Sarah wiped face, looked at Doctor with red but clear eyes. Does my father know this? Don't know. If he read complete report at the time, maybe? But most families don't read technical reports. Stay with simplified police explanation. Car accident, fatal victim. Sarah stood up, needed to move, needed to do something with frenetic energy running in veins. Need to tell him, need to... Sarah! Dr. Peterson stood up too. Your father had stroke. Cannot speak. Telling him this now will change something for him? She stopped, thought. No, won't change. He can't ask me forgiveness. Can't withdraw 25 years of guilt he put on me. Can't undo anything. Then tell who matters, yourself. Sarah returned to ICU 30 minutes later, moving differently. Wasn't lightness exactly, was something deeper. Clarity. Thomas was awake, looking at ceiling. She entered, pulled chair close to bed, sat. Stayed looking at him for long time, then started talking. Voice calm, firm, without anger, but without submission. Dad, need to say things. And you will listen to me because you can't interrupt anymore. He turned eyes to her. I loved you whole life. Love still. But I also put you in place you never asked to occupy, made you my judge, gave you power to decide if I deserved to live, and that wasn't fair, neither to you nor to me. Took deep breath. You didn't have to forgive me for me to have value as person. I was the one who needed your forgiveness to avoid doing hard work of forgiving myself. To not have to accept that life is unfair, that tragedies happen, and that sometimes there are no culprits. Continued, words coming out faster now, but I just discovered something. Ryan didn't die because of me, didn't die because I got in car, didn't die because he drank, died because he had brain aneurysm no one knew about, time bomb that was going to explode anyway. And you know what that means? That 25 years of guilt, 25 years of penance, 25 years of my life wasted were based on lie. Tear ran down Thomas's face. Real love doesn't fix tragedies, Dad. Love just exists, with all pain, with all anger, with all imperfection, and I didn't let our love be real in last 25 years. Pretended caring was enough, but we never talked about Ryan for real, never cried together, never shared pain. I just accepted your anger as deserved punishment. Sarah held Father's hand, the one that still had movement. Sorry. Sorry for not saving Ryan from that medical condition no one knew existed. Sorry for surviving when you clearly preferred it was me. Sorry for letting you punish me because I also thought I deserved it. Squeezed his hand. But mainly sorry for one thing, for not forcing you to face truth. Ryan made adult choice to drink and drive, put his own life and mine at risk. And even if aneurysm was real cause, his choice wasn't innocent, and you never wanted to admit that because you needed him to be perfect. I let you keep that illusion, and by letting, we both stayed prisoners. Let go of his hand slowly. But it's over. 25 years of prison are over, not because you freed me, because I am freeing myself. Stood up, walked to window, looked at city outside, lights turning on with nightfall, life happening, indifferent to her pain, turned back to Father. Will continue caring for you, because I love you, because you are my father, but won't do it carrying guilt anymore. Will do it because I choose, not because I owe. Understand difference? Thomas had tears flowing now, free, silent. With huge effort, lifted hand, pointed to her, then to own chest. Trying to say something, Sarah understood. You love me too, is that it? He nodded head, movement small but clear. I know, Dad, always knew, but love without forgiveness, love without honesty, love without freedom suffocates and almost killed me. She approached, took Ryan's wristband from pocket, the wristband she had worn for 25 years, like hair shirt, put it on Father's wrist, on wrist that still had movement. He was always your favorite son. It's okay. Can keep him with you now. I will live my life. No more life of substitute, of penitent, of guilty one. My life. Took photo she always carried in wallet, the four together, complete family. Left on nightstand beside father. This was who we were before tragedy broke us. And we'll honor this family, not breaking myself anymore. We'll honor Ryan by living. We'll honor Mom by being happy. And we'll honor you by letting you go. Kissed his forehead, long, deliberate. Whispered, love you. Always will. But can't let your conditional love define my value anymore. When she moved away, Thomas was crying without sound, body shaking. Wasn't apology, wasn't forgiveness, but was recognition, was mutual liberation. Jessica was waiting in corridor when Sarah came out. Didn't say anything, just opened arms. Sarah entered, hug, let herself be held. You did it, Jessica whispered. Did what? Let go. Saw in your eyes. You finally let go. Sarah nodded against friend's shoulder. It's not okay, Jess. Nothing is okay. My father will never be able to apologize. Ryan is dead. 25 years don't come back. But I am free. And that, in strange way, is enough. Aunt Linda approached, had heard part of conversation from outside room, hugged Sarah without words. The three women stood there, hospital corridor, silent witnesses of transformation. There was no celebration. There was no applause. Just quiet recognition of strength that is born from accepting unacceptable. Sarah finally felt something didn't feel for 25 years. Loneliness that wasn't punishment, was alone, not by abandonment, but by choice. And for first time in adult life, that didn't scare her. Scared less, at least. 3 days later, Sarah was home, her apartment, silent now without father. Making coffee, just one coffee for her. Looking at garden through window. Without urgency, without corrosive guilt, without need to fill void with penance, simply being. Life wasn't what she planned. Father in permanent hospital, brother dead, 50 years alone. But was life, real breath, heart beating, possibility. And that, in that fragile but honest moment, was enough to continue. 6 months later, Sarah Bennett woke up at 7 a.m., not 5:30 as she did for 25 years. Made coffee just for her without rush, without measuring spoons for anyone but herself. Sat on balcony with hot cup in hands, observed fat blue jay landing on railing, the same one that appeared when her father lived there. Good morning, said to bird. It chirped back. Small, simple, enough. The apartment was silent but not empty. There was difference. Silence of peace, not of punitive loneliness. Sarah had returned to work at downtown firm 3 months ago, part-time now. Money was tighter, but time was freer. Used afternoons for something never did. Live without defined purpose. Sometimes read, sometimes walked in Central Park, sometimes just sat and existed. Didn't save world after discovering truth about Ryan. Didn't have spectacular transformation. Just did small things, real, one day at a time. Started therapy with Dr. Miller every Thursday at 3. Painful sessions where unearthed 25 years of guilt, anger, resentment, but also sessions that showed surviving was already victory. Jessica visited every Tuesday for lunch, ate, talked, sometimes cried together about lost brothers. More often, laughed at silly things, complained about normal problems of 50-year-old women. Small, real, enough. Thomas was in rehab clinic. Sarah visited 3 times a week, not 7. Brought fruit he liked, sat beside him for an hour, talked about her day, news, nothing important. He listened, sometimes nodded, sometimes squeezed her hand. Limited communication, but honest. No more pretense of perfect relationship was what it was. Father and daughter trying to exist beside each other despite fractured past. And Sarah had made peace with that. Some days he looked at her with something resembling remorse. Other days, with old anger shining still in eyes, Sarah accepted both. Wasn't her job to fix his emotions. When someone at work or church asked, "How are you?" Sarah paused, thought for real, replied honestly, "Some days good, others not so much, but I am here." Was truth. Wasn't inspiring, wasn't movie happy ending, but was real, and real was enough. Internal changes appeared in small actions. When neighbor invited for dinner, Sarah said yes for first time in years. When co-worker suggested painting class on Saturdays, she signed up. When nice man at market asked for number, she didn't give, but didn't run in panic either. Not ready yet, but thanks. Progress wasn't linear. There were days woke up feeling familiar weight of guilt. Days looked at Ryan's photo and cried. Days wanted to call father and beg forgiveness like before. But on those days, instead of sinking, called Jessica or therapist, or simply breathed through pain until past. Because pain always passed eventually. Had learned that. On Tuesday of 25th week after Dr. Peterson's revelation, Sarah did something hadn't done for 25 years. Went back to accident site. Road was same. Sharp curve, tree still marked where Ryan's car had hit, late afternoon sun illuminating asphalt. Sarah got out of car, walked to mark on tree, passed fingers over old scar in bark. Was alone, without audience, without witnesses. Internal movement, not external. Took from pocket 2 papers, letters. One for Ryan, one for herself at 25. Read out loud to empty road. "Ryan, you weren't perfect. Drank, made bad choices, put me in impossible situation, but were also my best friend, my twin, my other half. And I forgive you your choices, and forgive myself for not saving you from something no one could save." Folded letter, buried at foot of tree. Sarah of 25, you will suffer a lot. Will carry guilt that isn't yours for too long. Will stop living because we'll think don't deserve, but want you to know you survive. And one day we'll realize surviving is also way of honoring who is gone. Buried second letter beside first. Stayed standing there 10 minutes, wind-moving hair, sun-warming face. There was no cathartic moment of complete healing. There was no divine voice absolving. Just 50-year-old woman standing on road, making peace with past can't change. And that was enough. When returned to car, saw Linda leaning against, waiting. Sarah had asked her to come, but didn't know if would come. Auntie, niece, hugged in silence. "Your father asked for you yesterday," said Linda softly. "Not with words, but pointed to your photo I left in his room. And think he feels missing. In his way, broken feels." Sarah nodded. "I miss him too. The father he was before, but can't live waiting for him to return to be that. I know, and think deep down, he knows too." Drove back together, Linda telling stories of when Sarah and Ryan were kids. Good memories before tragedy struck. Sarah listened, laughed, cried a little, allowing herself to feel everything without judgment. Sarah's story doesn't teach that love conquers all, teaches that sometimes love isn't enough to heal certain wounds, and that it's okay to admit that. Teaches you can do everything right and still lose. That can carry guilt for years and discover never was yours to begin with. And that discovery doesn't erase lost years, but can free remaining years. Teaches peace isn't absence of pain. It is capacity to sit with pain, recognize it, and not let be everything you are. Teaches strength isn't not breaking, is putting pieces together even if don't fit perfectly, accept cracks and continue. Teaches life is rarely what we plan, but can have beauty even imperfect, even fractured, even without fairy tale happy ending. How many of us carry guilts that aren't ours, relationships that didn't end as should have, forgiveness we wait for but never comes? Sarah's story tells us, don't need to be forgiven by another to free yourself. Don't need father, mother, brother, husband, son, admit error to move on. Don't need perfect closure to start new chapter. Sometimes guilt is just cruel circumstance you carried out of kindness or fear, and letting go, even without blessing of who put on you, is most courageous act exists. Surviving loss, injustice, wasted years, and choosing to live anyway. That is already heroism. You aren't alone living imperfect life. None of us is. And you? Have you ever carried guilt for years and discovered never was yours? Have you ever waited for forgiveness you realized will never come? Have you made peace with past can't change and present isn't what dreamed? Tell in comments not your perfect victory story, but your imperfect acceptance story of how learned to live with cracks, of how chose to continue even when happy ending didn't come. Other women need to know peace is possible even without complete resolution, that you can be strong and broken at same time. Subscribe to channel, leave your like, share with someone needing to hear it's okay not to be totally okay. Next week, new story. Remember, don't need to be whole to be brave. Scars only prove you survived, and surviving, my dear, is already victory. See you soon.